Hello, 48 Hours True Crime here. Today, I'll be examining the intriguing case of Roberta Simard. And don't forget you can get $1,000 for free at the link in the description. Now I'll begin by providing background information on this case, move on to the timeline of the crime, and then conclude with my analysis. Roberta Samard was born in May 1953 and lived in Albany, Oregon, about an hour and 15 minutes south of Portland. She worked as a secretary at a paper mill, and after a failed marriage, she met a man named Kenneth Arlen Simard, known as Ken, in 1996. Born in January 1958, Ken was also an Albany native. After graduating high school in 1976, he enlisted in the U.S. Navy. Ken married twice before meeting Roberta, but both marriages ended in divorce. Like Roberta, Ken was employed at the same paper mill, working as a mechanic. Their shared workplace brought them together, and after some time dating, the couple married in Las Vegas on September 2, 2000. In 2009, their workplace closed down. Ken started his own roofing business, and in 2012, they purchased a 5-bedroom home in Millersburg, Oregon, just 6 miles north of Albany. Friends and neighbors considered the couple to be successful and stable. However, roofing can be a risky trade, as Ken discovered firsthand when he suffered a serious fall, shattering both heels. While he was out of work, he studied to become an HVAC technician and eventually found a new job, seemingly rebuilding his life and career. Unfortunately, this newfound stability didn't last. On November 16, 2015, at 6:10 a.m., Roberta made a distressing 911 call, reporting that she had shot her husband. When police arrived, they found Ken's body on the back porch. He was dressed for work, and his lunchbox, mug, and car keys lay nearby. There were no signs of a struggle. Ken had been shot once in the neck with Roberta's .38 caliber revolver, a Smith & Wesson 642 with pink custom grips and an added laser sight. According to Roberta, she was distressed about their home going into foreclosure. The day they were supposed to vacate the house, Ken left for work at 6 a.m., and Roberta said she retrieved her revolver, intending to harm herself. However, Ken unexpectedly returned, possibly to retrieve something he had forgotten. Roberta, standing inside the house with the gun, attempted to lift it quickly to prevent Ken from stopping her. Tragically, as she moved her hand, the gun discharged, hitting Ken in the neck. Roberta claimed she didn't mean to harm him, but the authorities disagreed. Roberta was arrested, initially charged with first-degree manslaughter, which was later upgraded to murder. In April 2017, she was convicted and sentenced to 25 years in prison, with a possibility of release at age 87. Throughout her trial, Roberta maintained her innocence, insisting the shooting was accidental. However, the state argued she acted with intent, supported by details from their investigation. There were indications of marital tension, particularly around finances. According to acquaintances, Roberta had a habit of lavish spending and liked to show off her wealth. Ken's notebook revealed his frustrations. He felt controlled, expressing that Roberta managed all their finances, even holding the passwords to their bank accounts. If he spent money without her approval, it often led to conflict. He noted that he let her affect his self-esteem, writing, "I give her power over me," and suggesting he was fed up with the relationship. There was even evidence that Roberta's spending had brought severe financial repercussions, including the impending loss of their home, which was scheduled for foreclosure the day of the incident. Despite negotiating with the new owner to remain a little longer, it seemed that Roberta had not made any preparations to move. The day Ken was killed was supposed to be the day they vacated their home, but the house remained untouched, with nothing packed. Ken was apparently unaware of the severity of their financial troubles. To him, the foreclosure was a mere misunderstanding. He believed Roberta had resolved it. In the end, Roberta's actions left the state convinced of her guilt, though no clear motive was ever fully established. Now, let's delve into the evidence for and against her alleged intent to commit murder. Continuing the analysis, additional details paint a complex picture surrounding Roberta Simard's actions and motivations, suggesting the tragic incident may have been far from accidental. Ken, for one, was determined not to lose their house, believing Roberta's assurances that the foreclosure had been a mistake she had resolved. Yet, it is difficult to ignore the timing. The shooting took place on the final day they were permitted to stay in the house, casting suspicion on whether this accident was truly a coincidental event. Roberta acknowledged pulling the trigger, killing Ken in an instant. The fatal shot hit Ken squarely in the neck, a precise location among countless other possible trajectories, making the incident seem even more unlikely as an accident. Rather than hitting a wall, floor, or glass door, the bullet struck one of the few vulnerable spots that would prove fatal. Roberta later reenacted the shooting for the police, claiming that Ken had been about 18 inches from the gun. However, forensic analysis contradicted her account. The autopsy confirmed that the revolver was pressed directly against Ken's neck, revealing an intentional closeness that belied her accidental claim. Roberta herself had no memory of Ken reaching for the gun, and with no gunshot residue found on his hands, it was unlikely he tried to defend himself. Another telling detail is the weapon used. The Smith & Wesson 642, a double-action revolver, requires 12 pounds of pressure to discharge. Roberta had previously taken it to a shooting range where she struggled to pull the trigger, a task challenging to accomplish accidentally. For Roberta's defense, though it's theoretically possible for her to have unintentionally fired the gun, this line of reasoning seemed increasingly implausible given the evidence. Contrasting these inculpatory elements, many of Roberta and Ken's acquaintances saw them as a model couple. Ken reportedly spoke highly of his wife, never mentioning any issues between them. Some saw Roberta as financially savvy, but in reality, her extravagant spending contributed to their deep financial troubles. According to her own testimony, she pulled the trigger, attempting to take her life, an explanation that could technically account for her intent to fire. Nonetheless, this slight possibility did little to sway the case in her favor. As the investigation unfolded, Ken's notebook provided a window into his growing frustration with Roberta's behavior. She exerted total control over their finances, withholding bank account passwords and even managing their mail through a P.O. box. Ken felt restricted, reduced to asking permission for any spending and receiving only an allowance. This financial control masked a deeper reality. Roberta's spending was excessive, stretching their budget to its breaking point and leading to the foreclosure Ken believed had been resolved. Her persistent narrative that Ken was bad with money belied her own irresponsibility. The foreclosed house embodied Roberta's self-inflicted crisis. Facing eviction, she scrambled to negotiate extensions with the new owner, yet made no tangible preparations to vacate. She likely hoped, unrealistically, that the new owner might let her remain indefinitely. As the foreclosure loomed, Roberta was engulfed by shame. It's plausible she preferred facing murder charges over confronting Ken with the truth about their financial ruin, a devastating blow to the sense of control she had cultivated. Ken, who trusted his wife's financial management, remained unaware of the gravity of their situation. Family members had even offered financial assistance to save the house, but he turned them down, assured by Roberta that everything was under control. Ken's unwavering trust compounded his vulnerability and ultimately served as the tragic foundation of this case. 48 Hours True Crime Analysis draws the conclusion that Roberta's pride and fear of exposure drove her fatal actions. She could not tolerate the shame of Ken discovering her deception and financial incompetence, a harsh reversal of her years-long insistence that he alone was irresponsible with money. Rather than face this reality, she seemingly chose a violent end for Ken and an elaborate cover-up.